review of the California Bar First Year Students Multiple Choice Exam question number 1. And I have done other videos on this, but this is a different version. It's a 2025 version, and it's not going to be listing restatement or anything like that. It's going to be done a little differently. So we're going to be looking at question 1, like I said. I'm going to go ahead and read off the call of the question, which I've highlighted here for you. And then we'll look at the fact pattern. We'll pull out some themes and some things that we think of off the top of our head when we see a question like this. And then we ask ourselves what the right answer is and what the reasoning is behind the right answer. So I actually made some notes before I came on and examined the question. I put the link here, which I'm going to put this in the box below, and I put in some themes and a little note for you there that you can look at later. I guess this might not be perfectly grammatically correct according to the grammar check, but so here we have question 1, and we're going to be noticing that they're asking a civil rights question here about something. It says the best analysis of the party's legal rights is. So it's two parties to a contract, and let's look at the fact pattern real quick. Carl and Homer entered into a valid written contract under which Carl agreed to build a house on Homer's lot. Homer agreed to pay $150,000 for the house. The contract stated Homer's duty to pay shall not arise unless and until the house is constructed in full compliance with the attached specifications. Okay, so question 1 is asking, assume that shortly after the commencing performance, Carl called up Homer and he said, the half-inch rods for the foundation required in the specification were in short supply, but quarter-inch rods were readily available. Homer replied, go ahead, use the quarter-inch. Okay, a day later, before Carl had bought or installed the rods, Homer called and stated that Carl must use half-inch rods. Carl refused to do so. So now Carl's not doing the work, or he's going to do it differently than they agreed to in the contract. So again, this is a contract law question. And what are the choices that we have? I'm going to give you the answer at the end, but I'm going to have us look at the questions before I discuss some of the particulars here. Now, if you already know the answer and you're really good at contract law, just go ahead and skip this. And I'm just going to go through one question at a time here and there and add it into this new playlist, okay? So you don't have to follow if it doesn't, Anyway, so the best analysis of the party's legal rights is A, Homer waived his right to have a half-inch steel, and his waiver can't be retracted. Okay, so we're talking about that concept of waiver. Do you see that word waived? I actually wrote all these things down here that came to mind upon looking at this, and what I know about the law. So you can do the same thing too. You have an outline. When you first practice these questions, you want to do them low and slow. You want to kind of like do them maybe even open book until you start really getting the hang of it, because these are tough questions. This is a really good question for the California Bar to be asking you, because there's a lot of inferences you can make, and the subject matter is covering parole evidence rule. Think about it. This is a written contract. What contracts have to be in writing? Can you modify the contract? Does UCC govern because it's goods, or the predominant factor test? Well, you could be thinking, overthinking the whole thing and doing that, or you could just say, hey, this is a common law contract. The Williston view looks at the four corners of the contract. The parole evidence rule says what? What does the parole evidence rule say? It says, did the parties intend the writing to be complete? When they did this, were they allowed to modify the contract? Okay, so question A. Homer waived his right. Is that the right answer? Is it answer A, or is it B? Homer and Carl modified their contract, and Carl may use the quarter-inch rod. So he can't retract it, or he can. That's the question. What is the legal rights of the party? How do you best answer this? Okay, now C. Homer waived his right to have a half-inch rods, but he's retracted the waiver, so Carl must use the half-inch rods. D. Homer's statement, go ahead and use the quarter-inch, is not effective either as a modification or a waiver because Homer did not expressly agree to modify or waive. What is that? Express contracts? What are they? You thinking about these words here? Amending contracts, accord and satisfaction. Does it need to be in writing? What about the parole evidence rule? I mean, this is a really, it's covering a lot of areas that are sometimes inferred and very nuanced. So, and then you think about the statute of frauds, right? And offer acceptance. But what about consideration? Is there consideration? And what about conditions of the contract? Do you know the answer to this? Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you the answer, and then I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to put this stuff below, and then you can review anything that you might need to review. If you don't need to review anything, great, that's wonderful. You can just move on to the next question. Okay, so the answer is C. Homer waived his right to have half-inch rods, but he's retracted the waiver so that Carl must use the half-inch rods. Okay, why is that? Why is it C and not B or A or D? Because of the way the law reads. This is a common law question, and with the oral agreement, the oral modification, the question, you can have an oral agreement, but the terms of the contract, that would be a material breach if he didn't do what was written in the. It's a condition of the contract. It's the Williston view would be looking at the four corners of the contract, and express contracts. Is it in writing? Did this and was there consideration for the change in the condition? Did he change his price for the different rods? No. So I mean, if you think about it, the view about integration of other terms and the express conditions of the contract, and also good faith. So the rights of the party at common law go with the objective standard of the reasonable person. Is it reasonable for the contractor to refuse to go by what he's been contracted to do and be inconvenienced and have to go out of his way because he thought at the beginning of the contract that he could readily get the half-inch rods, but now he wants to cut corners? So that's, it's basically, you look at the contract, you pull out your knowledge of the outline and what the courts would likely decide. And remember, a contract has to have a meeting of the minds, and certain contracts have to be in writing and have no defenses. In practice, you think about all the defenses. What's his defense? Oh, it's a little bit hard. I might have to wait for the quarter inch, maybe the quarter inch or less money and not as good. Maybe they're not, I don't know. We don't even need to go there and infer that. We can just look at the fact pattern and we can know that the rights of the party, the person that's contracting with Carl, Homer, is that Carl has to do that job, and he could take, Homer could take him to court, but you know about the law with service contracts. You can't force somebody to do the work if he's not going to do the work, but that's another. They didn't ask that. They asked what the legal rights are, right? So he does have a right, but they're not asking. They're asking you to choose from these particular rights, and Homer has a right to demand that Carl use the half-inch rods. He could get a lawyer and send a demand letter. That might cost him money. He's got to be practical. What's a reasonable person going to do? Try to stay cool, try to stay calm. And that's the same thing with answering these questions. It's a really, really good question. It's testing a lot of different things. Okay, well, that's what I got for you today on the California Bar first year students bar exam multiple choice question. If you have any questions or comments, please put them below. Again, here's some of the key themes that I pulled out just looking at the fact pattern. I have done other videos on this. I put in restatement and other reasons why it was right or wrong. And so you always pick the best choice. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.